giant mechanical sea life, psychedelic visuals, and trippy experimental soundtracks by Zuntata have made Darius one of the most popular shooting game franchises of all time, starting in 1986 with a giant triple-screen cabinet and continuing over the next decade with several arcade sequels and home ports across every generation of console. One of the very few series, along with R-Type and Alesta, that are still active today, getting new sequels and content, the latest of which was Dariusburst. And if there's one player that loves and knows this series like the back of his hand, having cleared most of them every which way but loose, it's GOJIGUY. He put together a definitive video on Dariusburst that really impressed me, clearly explaining every version of the game, every release, why it can be so confusing, and which is the very best release, which you should be looking at picking up. I don't know if anyone could have done it better. And if you're interested in finding the best, most complete, and feature-rich version to buy, this is the video for you. GOJIGUY is also an indie developer, having released multiple games, his most recent being Dawn of the Monsters, a pretty sweet looking kaiju beat 'em up, with over 100 reviews, and a very positive ranking on Steam. It's also available on all platforms. The dude knows his games, and without a doubt, he most definitely knows his Darius. So, without further ado, GOJIGUY and the confusing history of Dariusburst.
Meditation.
1997's Darius was the last major Taito-developed Darius game. It's a fantastic game, and many people consider it the best in the series, if not one of the greatest shmups out there. Sadly, it also left the series in a drought that lasted 13 years. The story for how Dariusburst actually came into being is quite fascinating. It all started with a sole Taito developer who just really wanted to make a new Darius game. His name is Hiroshi Aoki. He tried pitching for a new Darius as early as 2005, but it wasn't until 2008 when he met with game developer Pyramid that they finally got things off the ground. Pyramid was hot off the heels of their popular Patapon series of games, and while initially envisioned as an arcade game, Dariusburst ended up shifting platforms to the PSP, just like Patapon. In 2009, Dariusburst released on PSP in Japan only, marking the first new Darius game since Darius. Despite being the start of the entire Dariusburst series of games, this PSP version of the game is probably the least available version of Dariusburst. If you want to play this game outside of emulation or importing a physical PSP copy, your only option nowadays is 2012's Dariusburst SP, which is a mobile phone port that adds some content from the later arcade release and a new SP motor range, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. This first game introduces the key elements of the Dariusburst series that were totally new at the time. First is multiple ship selection. Second is the return of classic ships from older games. Third is the burst laser, and the fourth is that it has multiple modes of play. So in a series first, Dariusburst allows you to choose from 3 ships right at the start. The Legend ship, the Next ship, and the Origin ship, that's from Darius 1. This was a really cool feature that increased replayability, and it was also greatly expanded on in the future releases. The biggest mechanical change for the series was the addition of the burst laser. Inspired by the Alpha Beam from Darius, which was itself inspired by the beam from Metal Black, this allows you to build up a burst meter and unleash it to deal massive damage, get a massive score bonus, and counter enemy lasers. You can also detach the laser and control it independently of your ship, allowing for even greater score. Lastly, the game includes multiple modes, including a mission mode and burst mode, an arranged mode that removes weapon power-ups and lets you swap between missile, laser, and wave shots at any time. A burst mode is still actually exclusive to this PSP version of the game. It's worth noting that in arcade mode you play through A and B no matter what route you choose afterwards, and then it plays like a standard Darius game with 26 stages total. The PSP version was enough of a success that Taito asked Pyramid to develop an arcade version of the game using the same assets and gameplay, but greatly expanded upon and otherwise redesigned from the ground up. Thus, in 2010, we got Dariusburst AC. Followed by a revision in 2011 called Dariusburst AC-EX. This game would form as the basis for all console versions of the game moving forward. When people talk about Dariusburst, they're talking about Dariusburst AC, not the forgotten PSP game. Dariusburst AC brought back the ultra-wide display of classic Darius games, but it pushed it even further, with two 16:9 monitors expanding the display size to a massive 32:9. It brings back the body sonic feature from the original Darius game, where the cabinet actually shakes via clever use of a subwoofer. It also pumps up the enemy count with brand new levels that absolutely flood the screen with popcorn to blast through. The developers of this game said that instead of trying to create a horizontal bullet hell game, they aimed to make an enemy hell game where huge waves of enemies try to overwhelm the player. It's quite brilliant, as bullet hell games can be quite awkward or difficult in a horizontal space, but Dariusburst feels quite natural. Dariusburst AC also adds a dedicated turn button, allowing you to flip your ship's direction at a whim, and it ups the ship count to 4, adding the brand new Formula ship. The EX revision adds another 4 ships, bringing the count to 8, and bringing back the ships from Darius 2, Darius Gaiden, G Darius, and Dariusburst SP. This is also the first Darius game to support simultaneous 4-player co-op. The original Dariusburst and SP were single-player only affairs. When you boot up Dariusburst AC-EX, you are greeted with 4 options: Original Mode, Original EX Mode, Chronicle Mode, and Event Mode. Original Mode is the classic arcade mode. This game actually shortened the play requirement down to 3 stages per run, which keeps it quite nice and snappy compared to the original Dariusburst. It also allows you to choose from multiple starting stages, unlike previous Darius games. Original Mode EX was introduced in the AC-EX revision, and is a similar concept to Original Mode, but includes new levels, new bosses, and a much higher difficulty. Chronicle Mode is an interesting mode because it was created out of the idea of bringing something completely new to the arcade and Game Center crowd. It consists of thousands, yes, thousands, of stages, split between multiple planets that you must liberate by completing the red missions on the grid. Each planet has stages that, when completed, unlocks the stages next to them, eventually allowing you to tackle the red stage, liberate the planet, and move on to the next one. As you can guess by the sheer amount of stages, this was not intended to be completed by one person. Instead, the progress made in this mode is actually saved to the arcade cabinet itself, and the community is supposed to tackle this mode together. It's a really cool concept that arcade regulars really latched onto. It offered this weird sense of communal progress that I've only ever seen in, I don't know, Nobi Nobi Boy? In the console ports, this is achieved over a network, choosing a virtual machine as your cabinet. Event Mode was another forward-thinking mode designed to bring arcade players together. By having the arcade cabinet connect to a network, Taito could release new time-limited events with special rules that would give players a few weeks to get a high score and compete with every other Dariusburst arcade cabinet in the world over the network. It's similar to modern time-limited events in service games like Fortnite. A pretty cool idea, but once the event was done, it was removed from the machine so you couldn't play them anymore. This also helped build a bit of community around these arcade cabinets. Not only were you trying to liberate all the planets in Chronicle Mode, but you could then compete with other cabinets in Event Mode. In Darius Odyssey, Cosmic Voyager, they actually have an interview with some Dariusburst players, and it honestly really resonates how nostalgic they sound, reminiscing about new event drops and collaborating to share strategies and try to beat the other cabinets around Japan and make sure that their game center had the top score. It's kind of cute and honestly such a forward-thinking concept for an arcade game. Anyways, that's the history of Dariusburst. Not too confusing, right? Some weird names and some convoluted modes, but it's pretty straightforward. There was a PSP game, an arcade game, and then an enhanced version of that same arcade game. Except, here's where it gets confusing. There are 4 different releases of Dariusburst spread across 3 different platforms, all released over the course of 6 years. Let's break that down and explain. The first and most important port of Dariusburst is Dariusburst Chronicle Saviors. This was released on both the PS4 and PS Vita worldwide. In addition to an arcade-perfect but untranslated port of Dariusburst ACEX called AC Mode, it also offered a brand new home console mode called CS Mode. This turns Dariusburst into a stage-based story mode, where you unlock stages on a grid. It sounds kind of like Chronicle mode, I know, but it's much smaller in scope and scale, and is developed with home console players in mind. Gameplay takes place in a ratio closer to 16:9, it has its own exclusive stages, bosses, music, and a brand new playable ship called the Murakumo. However, the Murakumo is only playable in this mode and not in AC mode. If you purchase one of 15 DLC packs for the game, you unlocked a new mode called DLC Mode, which was a version of CS Mode designed for use with brand new DLC ships. These ships were all guests from other games and were only usable in DLC mode. There are DLC packs from Taito, Sega, Cave, Aiding, and Capcom. It's like shooting game Smash Bros. One thing worth mentioning about the AC mode in Dariusburst CS is that Event mode is not included. There's a button for it on the AC menu, but you can never click it. It's kind of weird, but it's emulating the arcade game, so I guess it makes sense, as you would only be able to access event mode if there was an active event, but it's still kind of odd. Either way, just making it clear, you have no event missions in this game. For a while that was it. Dariusburst CS got a port to Steam with support for ultra-wide displays, but after that things were quiet. That is until the advent of the Nintendo Switch, which has become kind of a shmup haven for developers, causing a serious renaissance of the genre. Taito took notice of this and released Darius Cosmic Collection in 2019, and followed it up with Darius Cosmic Revelation in 2022. Cosmic Revelation is a double pack of G-Darius HD and Dariusburst ACEX Plus. Both of these games also got standalone digital and physical releases. Dariusburst ACEX Plus is a kind of final update for the arcade game Dariusburst ACEX. It does not include the CS mode or the DLC mode from Dariusburst CS. So I know what you're thinking, why would they only port half of Dariusburst CS? Is this still worth it if I already own Dariusburst CS? While I can't really answer those questions, I can explain what this new game is about and what makes it unique. So Dariusburst ACEX Plus is a brand new revision of Dariusburst AC for home consoles. It includes everything from the previous version of ACEX, plus the following additions. First major addition is Event Mode. Not only have they included all of the event missions from the original arcade release of the game, they've also created new EX Plus events that are entirely new and original and exclusive to this home console port of the game. These have new music, new stages, and more. Some of these are incredibly useful, like an easy and instant way to practice some of the hardest bosses in the game, like GTV. Others are just new and more challenging stage runs. The next major addition is the inclusion of the Murakumo ship from Dariusburst CS. Remember how I said the Murakumo was not playable in AC mode? Well, now it is. This is a big feature as the Murakumo is one of the best ships in the game and great for beginners. ACEX Plus also offers instant replay functionality, a ghost score that allows you to see how your score compares with a top-ranked player live, rumble features that emulate the Body Sonic feature of the arcade cabinet where it would shake your ass when the game got loud, and better graphics and resolution on PS4 compared to CS. The last major addition is that the game is finally in English. The game is actually translated this time, which honestly it should have been in the first place. Now, this all sounds pretty good, but like I said before, it does not include CS or DLC mode for Chronicle Saviors. So to rectify that, Taito has released another game. Dariusburst CS Core. This is the other game included in the original Chronicle Saviors release, CS mode. It also includes, bundled natively, the DLC packs for Taito and Sega ships. The Capcom Cave and Aiding ships are not included and they will not be released for CS Core. However, CS Core adds its own new exclusive editions over the original Chronicle Saviors release. First is that they've added 6 new areas to CS mode. Remember how I said the PSP content never got ported to anything except for mobile devices? Well, that's changed now, as included in the new stages is remixed PSP content, remixed ACEX Plus content, and entirely new levels, including one that is specifically for practicing counterbursting. Why is it taking this many releases to get a counterburst practice mode? They've also added replay saving, ghost score, and Body Sonic HD Rumble just like ACEX Plus. So that's the lowdown, but which one should you buy? That's a complicated question with a complicated answer. For what it's worth, I personally think that Dariusburst ACEX Plus is the best and most complete release in the entire series. The AC mode is the most important to me, and I'd rather pay $40 for the AC mode with better graphics, event mode, EX events, and the Murakumo than $60 for Dariusburst CS. But that's just me. If I'm looking objectively, if you already own Dariusburst CS, I don't think you need to go out and buy any of these new releases unless you're an absolute Darius diehard or really need to play it on the go. If you don't own any of these games, it's really a balance between what you value most. The cost of picking up Dariusburst ACEX Plus and Dariusburst CS Core is pretty much the exact same as picking up Dariusburst Chronicle Saviors plus the Taito and Sega DLC packs down to the dollar, but with more and better content included. So if you only have a Switch or you prefer gaming on the Switch, it's the way to go. If you've only got a PS4 or a PC with Steam, then honestly, Dariusburst CS offers a better value on its own than Dariusburst ACEX Plus, since you can't buy CS Core for PS4 or PC. Dariusburst CS is also the only way to access all of the DLC, which is pretty cool, but it also costs more money on top of the base purchase. If you're a total noob to shmups, I'd recommend picking up either Dariusburst CS on PS4 and Steam, or CS Core on Switch, and sticking to CS mode to start. If you're a seasoned shmup veteran, pick up a copy of ACEX Plus and get right to the good stuff. Ultimately, at the end of the day, any release of Dariusburst is worth picking up, and I don't think you should fret about getting the perfect version of the game or missing out on content. All the content differences between all the versions are pretty minimal in the grand scheme of things, and they're all good games. It's just upsetting how needlessly complicated the whole process of deciding to buy a Dariusburst game could be. Anyways, that's my 2 cents on it. Do you agree? Have you played all the Dariusburst games? What's your opinion on the series? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you next time.